Okay. Live there. And in like 3 to 4 seconds, we'll be live there. Or live there. Right.
Yo, what's going on, everyone? Welcome to After Further Review, episode 66, aka the Baltimore episode. You already know, living in Pennsylvania, we had to give some love to the Baltimore fans. Got a special guest coming on later this show. Ben Ryan Chase about to break down everything Baltimore related with the Matt Controco, who won our March Madness, one of the winners of our March Madness challenge back in March. Finally got a good time to have him on, part of the AFR fam. I'm excited to introduce him a little bit later. But before we get into that, Ben Ryan Chase here. We wanted to start with the NBA playoffs and Ben's Knicks season coming to an end. Game 7, rough loss at the Garden. Pacers played to their pace. Yeah. Knicks got tired and even more injured. And what are your thoughts, Ben?
Yeah, so the beginning of the series, I think I touched on it, reiterated it, that was going to be an issue. It was just crazy watching that game to like basically from like 6 minutes left in the first quarter through like the rest of the game. It didn't feel like the Knicks were in it at all. I mean, yes, they cut it to like 6 or 7 in the third, but even then, immediately after, 8-0 run by the Pacers. The Pacers were hitting everything. I mean, at one point through the second quarter, I think they were like 18 for 21 from the field, like just some absurd number. They weren't missing, and the Knicks weren't. They were just not playing well defensively. I think OG even trying to play was a mistake. I mean, he hurt the team trying to play because he had no.
He was getting cooked on defense.
Yeah, he had no jump. He had no he was just stuck. He looked like he was running in quicksand.
Yeah, Siakam started the game on fire because of that.
Yeah, and so, but going into the year, all in perspective, to say that this is where the Knicks would have been, it's not a lost season on them. They have a great group of guys. They know who they have in Brunson. DiVincenzo, I mean, he's a starter in this league, and it's tough to win the way Tom Thibodeau coaches. It's just a tough way to win ball games in a 7-man rotation. And I was listening to one of the podcasts I listen to sometimes with Rachel Nichols and Matt Barnes. Oh, yeah. It was interesting because, talking about running them into the ground, but the reality is only really OG had an injury that could be potentially attributed to too many minutes, right? Like Brunson fractured his hand on a knee. That is Julius Randle's shoulder.
I mean, the longer you're out there, Mitchell Robinson one, I think maybe.
Mitchell Robinson's going to injure no matter who coaches.
There,
but it was a tough way to go because going into this series too, like Pacers matchup, it definitely was winnable. Definitely a winnable matchup. But hats off to them. They played really well. They played up to their potential. They shot the ball incredibly well. And they pushed, game 1 last night, they pushed the Celtics to the brink.
Yeah.
They're gonna wish they had gotten that one because that's probably gonna
that can hold them.
But not a lost season for the Knicks. Disappointing to lose that way to the Pacers, and I was disappointed because I was really excited for Game 7, and just to not have even like a close game really or feel competitive was a bit disappointing. I honestly turned it off 8 minutes left in the fourth. I didn't think there was any shot coming back. So we'll see what happens next year. We'll see what happens with the team, with Randle. I don't know where they all go from there, but in the playoffs, you got to play more than 7 guys. You got to. And Alec Burke, I mean, he went off. And he could have been.
He didn't play 1 minute in the Sixers series.
No, and he came off the bench and just shot. And he was aggressive. He was going into the paint. He was shooting the ball well. He gave them a spark. And he barely played. Yeah, he didn't play in the Sixers series at all. Didn't play. I don't think that game 3 or 4.
You add him 5 minutes here or there. It gives OG a rest. Like I don't
give Brunson a rest.
Give Brunson a rest.
Yeah. So again, not a lost season for them, but just Pacers feels like a missed opportunity to get back to the Eastern Conference Finals. Would have been the first time since 2000 for them. So I would have never guessed. I'm not surprised with the Celtics, but you look at the other 4 teams, got the Pacers, the Mavs, and the Timberwolves. You say that to me at the beginning of the year, I would have said you're batshit crazy.
Yeah. The main thing for me is you're like, oh, 3-3 series. It's such a competitive series. You just anticipate game 7's coming down to the end. So for sure, that game feels disappointing. But I agree with you. Not a bad season for the Knicks, especially with what they went through.
Yeah. I do have one question, though. I feel like when the Sixers lost, the best way for me to get over it was to imagine what they were going to do next offseason. So what's your wish list for the Knicks going into next season?
My wish list is to get rid of Julius Randle.
Okay.
It's like a 2-3 year wish list right there.
Yeah.
And I have a love-hate relationship with Tom Thibodeau because he's definitely instilled a culture that was not there before. And they've had a lot of – you can't deny the last 3 years winning seasons farther than they've gone before that. It's hard to say I don't want him there, but this doesn't feel like the recipe is going to win a championship. Feels like we can keep getting the playoffs. Feels like we can keep being competitive, but I don't feel like this is a recipe for a championship. So it's a tough spot. Randall gone. I'd love to see I don't know. I'd love to see like a Devin Booker, but it's hard for me to know how someone like him would play with Brunson, who's become really ball dominant. And it almost seems like they need to re-sign OG, and then they need to get maybe another 3-and-D guy. I like the Villanova 3 though. I'd like to keep them.
It is pretty cool.
I love Josh Hart. Josh Hart's I just really like him because he's a guy he's just a dog, and you love to have a guy like that on your team, kind of like a Marcus Smart, kind of those guys who don't need to score a ton and can just do everything, be everywhere.
PJ Tucker.
Yeah. So that Randall gone. Nothing against Randall. I just don't think he works in that system right now with everyone else. Him and Brunson both demand the ball a lot. So would Booker. So I don't know. I don't know who else they would add, but yeah.
It's wild. You went from your big 3 being 3 lefties, Brunson, Randall, and Barrett, to now your big 3 is just Villanova Wildcats in 2018. Such an odd big 3, but
I know
it's been working.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
Not going to watch much probably, honestly, until the finals. And I hate to root for I don't want to root for the Pacers, and I don't want to root for the Celtics. So
yeah. So real quick, obviously the Western Conference Finals are starting tonight. I do have a pick for you both. I know Matt's going to be on here shortly, but slept on them all year. I crapped on them all throughout the playoffs. I thought the Suns were going to stomp on them. But right here, right now, Timberwolves to win the series against the Dallas Mavericks. Yes, I still don't believe in Luka Doncic to win in big moments.
He is a crybaby. I will give you that.
Such a crybaby, but I think he's a
crybaby, Gordon. So shut the fuck up. Sorry.
more of a Russell Westbrook, James Harden type of regular season guy. But after sleeping on the Timberwolves all season, I have now watched them for about a month or so in these playoffs. They have all the pieces to win. They can dive into their bench and have versatile guys come in like Naz Reid, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who I love Nickeil Alexander-Walker. And I just think that they have a team that legitimately now in the Final Four could win a championship, which is just insane, especially with Anthony Edwards being as young as he is. Timberwolves to win the series -184. I have 2 units on it. You already know I'm a dog with my units.
2 units.
2 units.
Okay.
We're going big here. But it's a pick. Series starts tonight, but guess what? Win or lose game 1, I'm still riding with them. So they lose tonight, you can still get them even at better odds too. So I don't know what you all think, but that's what I'm riding with.
Yeah. It's hard for me to argue. They look really good. Besides Doncic, though, still got Kyrie over there. If there's anybody in the series who's going to have the ball,
But Maxi Kleba, I mean, he's not even with his shoulder. He was shut down for 3 weeks, and that doesn't even – I think he gets reevaluated sometime towards the end of this week, and that's a big part of it. But, I mean, they don't have a lot of depth at the height, and the Timberwolves somehow are able to play with Cat and Rudy Gobert out there together.
Yeah.
So – and their first guy off the bench is also a big. So I just think that's going to ultimately – demise the Dallas.
I saw out
Mavericks.
of the top 15 highest paid players in the NBA, the only one left is Rudy Gobert.
Yep.
Fucking ridiculous.
Yeah. Top 15 highest paid players, only Rudy Gobert. One, it's crazy that he's paid that much, but it's paid off for the Timberwolves. Two, gotta give the Celtics some credit for not somehow being able to pay the starting five they have and been able to run with that. And I mean, it just shows why they've probably been able to build these teams and been so dominant. Still somehow want them to lose. This is definitely their best chance to win a championship right here. I think they'll get through the Pacers with ease, 5 or 6, especially after game 1. So whoever comes out of the West, I'm going to be rooting for them. I will root for Luka Doncic over the Boston Celtics.
I'll probably back that train too.
I probably would as well. So I don't hate the Mavs. Just I do agree. Watching the games, Luka just he's got to focus on the actual game more than the refs.
Yeah. But obviously, we'll have time to talk through that. There's a reason that we named this episode the Baltimore episode. We're excited to have our third ever AFR guest on, Matt Catrocco. Believe he's in the waiting room. Let's let him in right now. Get him in here. And let's get ready to talk some Baltimore sports.
All right. We're going to add Matt to this. All right.
Ooh, boy.
There it is.
Graphics here. This is a really well done operation.
Welcome, Matt.
We got Mr. Maryland himself. Only left the state to go to the Shippensburg University, pristine Pennsylvania State School. Ended up back in Maryland, and he's been rocking it ever since. He rocked it in our March Madness bracket. He's rocked it all over the map. He's killing it right now. Welcome, Matt Catrocco. We're so excited for you to be on the show tonight.
Truly honored, but I'm a little ashamed of how I ended up here, and it's a sad story how I ended up here. I saw you guys were doing your March Madness bracket, and you didn't post it in any of the squad chats. You just posted it on the Instagram for the podcast. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to join because they don't know that. I don't think you guys know that I followed this. So I was like, I'm going to join. Maybe they'll get a laugh out of it. But I'm also bad at March Madness. You saw in my actual one that I tried with the squad guys, I came in middle pack. No, maybe middle top. But then for this one, I was like, I'm just going to do Barack Obama's bracket. So all of my picks were to a T what Barack Obama did. So thank you, Barack Obama.
That's funny. I did not know that.
Yeah, I didn't know that either.
I'm not excited to admit it. I just had to get it off my chest.
Matt, I got to ask quick, too. Where is that song? What's that? Is that from anything?
Atomic Dog by George Clinton.
Yeah.
I'm in a funk kick. I'm listening to a lot of funk music, and
okay.
It pumps me up. That's like an 80s, 90s kind of old school stuff.
Okay.
It's also in every 90s movie that you've ever seen.
I was gonna say I've definitely heard it plenty of times. That was a great song to open up to.
Well, if you remember, I mean, intramural. Sorry, not to interrupt. Just a good also tangent. Intramural softball. My walk-up song was "Big Pimpin'" by Jay-Z. I was tempted to do that, but no.
I don't remember what my song was.
No, I don't remember either. That's awesome, though.
Yeah.
Right,
no, but we're pumped to have you on the show, Matt. It's been long overdue. We needed to get one of our Ship fam on here. Super excited. And the main reason we wanted to have you on, especially right now, is because Maryland is an underrated sports state, I think. I mean, you don't have a basketball team. You don't have a hockey team. Being from outside of Philly, I grew up, there was always something big on TV to watch. So a lot of people from around the country are probably like, well, what do they do besides watch the O's usually suck? And then obviously the Ravens during football season. But believe it or not, there's plenty of stuff to watch in Baltimore. And I feel like it's only right that we start off with the 2024 Preakness Stakes. Matt, you and I were there this past weekend, and what an event that was. That was awesome.
First, there are more than 2 sports in the Baltimore area. There's the Baltimore Blast, which is the indoor soccer team. I've been to 2 games as a kid. Always cool. Do not follow them in the slightest. But yeah, the Preakness was great. Ryan and I got there. We watched the first couple races here in Towson with a bunch of people. We were pre-gaming it, and we watched like the prelims. And the funniest part was Devin gets, as you know, Devin gets more excited about my bets than I get excited about my bets. And at one point, we all bet the same horse in one of like the early races. It was like 11 a.m. And Devin told us the wrong number. He said, everybody bet on this horse name. And he's like, horse number 9, horse number 9. So we're all freaking out, and horse number 9 wins. And it turns out we all bet on horse number 4. So nobody won, actually. It was pretty devastating.
Oh my God.
I was going nuts. Lindsay was
he
pissed
ran
at me for
outside.
not betting. Lindsay was pissed at me for not betting. Turns out it was a win for me.
But it was I love seeing his joy in that moment. I didn't want to, when we found out it was the wrong horse, I was like, don't tell him. It's going to break his heart.
Yeah. And this is something I didn't know 2 things about a horse race event like the Preakness. There were 14 races throughout the day from like 10 a.m. till 8 p.m. And half the races are on a grass track, and then the other half are on the traditional dirt track, which is what you watch the actual Preakness main event at 7:01 p.m. Eastern. But that was wild in itself. They had races going every 45 minutes. The other crazy part to me, Matt, was that the 13th race is the main race, and then there was one more. There's one more.
Oh, there's one more.
There was one.
No.
Like
race number
14
is where you win it all. That's where you win it all back. That's when everything went wrong during the day. But race 14 is where you get your money to get a ride home.
Yeah. No, and it was awesome. I know everyone didn't know if Mystic Dan was going to be able to run or not because the Derby and the Preakness are so close together. He did end up running. He was the favorite going in to that race day and ended up finishing second to Seize the Gray, who I don't think anyone in our group had picked. But I had picked Mystic Dan and Chasing Freedom, who was ranked second. I think picked both of them to finish top 3. They finished second and third. So it was a great win for me, but overall,
dang, I didn't know you won. Congrats on winning.
Yeah. The lady, which is also cool. It's really cool being at these horse events because they have like the traditional. You go to the booth and give like a person cash and tell them. But the lady didn't understand what I put, so she put them both in as top 3. So $20 paid out 15, but I'll take it. I'll take.
That's a win.
It's a win. I went to cash out. I even gave her my bad ticket. I know that lost just in case, just for her to tell me it was a losing ticket. But no, it was a really fun event.
Yeah, Devin convinced me to bet on Tuscan Gold with him. It was the biggest bet I've ever done on a horse. So that was embarrassing because it did not happen. But it went out. It went pretty well. I mean, we watched the final race on like the big screen in front of the concert stage. And I knew Lindsay and Antoinette like hopped in front of like the first row of the concert like for I think like 45 minutes before the last race. And I was like, oh, we're gonna miss actually seeing the horses. But it was clutch because then we were front row when Jack Arlo showed up, which was cool because he basically came up and kissed Devin on the forehead. He like was right there.
Yeah, no, for sure. It was a great time. I know Maryland has plenty of other horse races besides just the Preakness Stakes, and I highly recommend to anyone relatively around the Baltimore area to at least check one out. I mean, it's just a cool experience. You walk around. It's like kind of like a social event, food, snacks, music. Chase, they had both Frank Walker and Griffin performed separate sets throughout the afternoon. So it was just really cool, like DJ sets.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome.
But
yeah, I've never actually been to a horse race at all, but that seems like one to check out.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Or like a legitimate one.
Yeah, I've never been to one either. I know like the closest thing, like the PGA Championship when I went to once, it was kind of cool. You could just like walk around and kind of drink, do your own thing, go to wherever you want. That sounds kind of neat.
Yeah.
Very similar to like golf event in that sense that it's like not the main focus isn't the sport the whole time. There are other things to do,
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. But that's about the extent of our horse racing knowledge. But at AFR, we talk about everything and anything. So we had to throw in the Preakness Stakes. I mean, huge event. I think the Belmont Stakes are the next one. No Triple Crown this year, but that's in about a month or so up in New York. Probably tune in for that now that I have some horse knowledge. So
There you go. Make it better too.
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't know how to bet. It's probably harder to bet when you're not at a window. I don't know. I don't know.
yeah, it's definitely Matt gave us the rundown before. Being a Maryland native, he knew what horse racing was all about, so he gave us the rundown and we knew what to expect when we got in there.
There's a bet that I tried to talk him into, but nobody did. Not even me, because it's stupid. It's just throwing money down the toilet. It's called like the superfecta, or like there was one even higher. It was like the high superfecta, and it was like you have to pick the top 5 horses, not only the top 5, but in the correct order. So it's like hitting like a wild parlay. They don't even give you odds when you place the bet because they don't know how to calculate them until the race starts.
Oh my god!
So if
they give you a range of like what you could win.
So it'd be like a if you $20, you'd win like 6, 5.
I don't even know because I've never even looked into it because it just feels like a waste of money.
Yeah, and that's a separate entity. I know we're not a huge betting podcast, but every time you place a bet, you don't get your odds because it depends on like the pool and everything. So you bet on a horse to win. Yeah, there might be odds, if you look up on the app on FanDuel, but nothing locks in until the race finishes. And I don't know the exact reasoning behind that, but it is like you don't know your payout necessarily. Maybe they're just stealing a bunch of money that no one knows about. But I mean, it's cool in the sense that like you really don't know until you hand the ticket in.
Yeah, you get a rough idea, but that's a good point. It just feels like they're winning every time. They're skimming off the top, and the rest of us just figure out what's left.
Yeah, for sure. No, but excited about that. Great event. Obviously, I feel like it's time to move on though to probably the most popular sporting event and team right now in Baltimore, in Maryland. That's the Baltimore Ravens. And Chase, being a Baltimore fan yourself, I know you didn't grow up as a kid as a Ravens fan right away, but you dove into it, and I'll let you run with this one.
Yeah, so we ended the season, as we all know, in a disappointing fashion. But I feel like since then, there's been a lot of growing. Obviously, we've had the draft and free agencies coming up around the corner. And we now know the schedule for next season. So if we're able to pull that bad boy up, we can take a little peruse down that. But Matt, I got to ask you, after the Chiefs game, what was your feelings and how do you feel about the season right now?
I was there. We went to the AFC Championship. I was up in the nose, beyond the nosebleeds. I was up in the oxygen tanks. Connor got us tickets. It was great. We had a good time. It was a lot of fun, but the general vibe around like halftime, because it was a very low score. It was boring. It just was just heavy defense. And I think the end score was like maybe 10s. I don't know. It was low. And the general vibe was just disgust. Everyone had such high hopes. This was our last little hurdle. The Super Bowl was a no-brainer if we beat the Chiefs. And it was just like the rug was pulled out from under us. Like everybody had, what do you do? Like, where are you going for the Super Bowl? Like Kate and I were going to New Orleans Super Bowl weekend. And I was like, I booked a contingency flight like Monday morning if the Ravens went to the Super Bowl. I wanted to watch in Fells Point. I didn't want to watch in New Orleans.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I mean, and I feel like in that game there was a lot of good positives. Like you said, we had Patrick Mahomes to I don't think any points in the second half. So even though we gave up the points in the beginning, obviously there's key moments where Zay Flowers fumbles the ball, just things not going our way.
I think people nearly threw up when Zay Flowers fumbled that ball. That was the worst, like the biggest, gut punch of the whole day.
Right.
Trying to think of the other bit that was frustrating was they kept trying to get Lamar to pass. They weren't running him at all, which was kind of like off kilter. It just felt weird.
Yeah. And that's a big point right now because apparently he's lost a bunch of weight. I guess a lot of people care about this. I seem to be on the train of I don't really care what happens. But I would say at the end of last year, he was definitely hesitant to maybe slide and move. And I don't know if that was because of his weight, but is that something you're looking at, you're interested in?
Lamar's losing the weight, and I'm finding it, man. But he, maybe part of it's his contract. Like maybe now that he's like, making the big money and he's like sold on Baltimore, he's a little more hesitant to do things to impress. He's more of a career guy now.
True. Yeah. And part of it too, it could be that he was getting caught by linebackers and safeties, and his first few years in the league, those guys were not catching him at all. So I know that we've talked about extensively how linebackers are getting shorter and smaller, but there's no way that Lamar still can't outrun them. So hopefully losing the weight is getting those miles per hour back so he can burn people. But let's take a look at the schedule right here. We have it popped up. Obviously, Kansas City right off the bat, take down Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce right off the bat. I know it's going to be a win because it's a regular season game and it doesn't matter about anything else. And for the Chiefs, they can afford to lose week 1. They lost week 1 last year and they won the Super Bowl. So for us, I feel like it's a good start. Is there any games on the schedule here that got you worried? I would have to say.
All right, hold on. I'm looking to see what the Taylor Swift tour is doing around that time of year with the Chiefs.
I
It
heard.
looks like she's on a pause.
I heard someone say, I don't know if it's true, that the NFL looked at that a little bit with their schedule, like when they made the schedule. I don't know if that's true or not. That's what I heard.
If there's millions of dollars in question and more viewership in question, I feel like it's just a silly little no-brainer. They can pull some strings to do, but I don't conspiracize. I don't want to diss Taylor. But it does, she'll be there the first game. It'll be the opening game of the season. She'll be there and she'll be on TV. Yeah. And
Thursday
it'll draw
night
viewership. Tickets as low as $289. Looking at it right now.
Yeah, all the other games that's insane.
How was Dallas $58? I'm just gonna point that out. How is that possible?
In Dallas.
Is that because they have more seating, or
maybe because it's less hype of a game? I don't know. It's just Dallas. That's the other funny part is we played the NFC East this year, which is like a little bit of a squad rivalry, some butting heads. I think the NFC East is the one where we're fully represented, like as a friend group. Like we have Lindsay with Dallas, sort of Connor with the Commanders downstairs,
and Ryan.
Yeah, I'm on the Dallas train now, Matt. Don't you forget about that. I switched.
You're still Eagles. You just a little bit of both.
Oh yeah, Dallas is the number 1, but any other time I root for the Eagles. So
no comment.
Doesn't make any sense, but I make it work. I can't explain it to you, but
the other bit is Giants. Dom has Giants covered too, but I don't think we. I thought we played all the NFC East. I guess we don't.
It's probably at the end.
Oh yeah, I can scroll down.
Oh, after the bye week,
yeah.
No, yeah, there it is. Yeah, the only games that worry me, I hate Cincinnati right now. They used to just be like a step over game, like that was like a put on a movie game, like watch till half and then stop watching. But now Cincinnati's a contender, and it's so frustrating. Yeah, it's scary now.
And obviously, I'd probably have to say Cincinnati might be back on that train if there's a healthy Joe Burrow and they get all their pieces back. That's probably going to be a 1-1 series, I could see.
But I will say the one thing that excites me the most and kind of the X factor that none of us can really predict is Derrick Henry. That was cool. I remember where I was when we were at like a meeting and someone was on their phone and like, yo, we just got Derrick Henry. And we all stopped what we were doing to talk about it. He used to, like, my sister went to Alabama like the same time he was there. And she had a fun story about him that she was in class and there was like one of her classmates was on FaceTime with her grandmother. And she walked up to Derrick Henry and was like, my grandmother's like a big fan. Can you just give her like a happy birthday shout out? And he was like, give me the phone. And he like talked to this girl's grandmother for like 10 minutes just about Alabama football.
Whoa.
Like, what a good dude.
Yeah.
So cool. I'm excited to have him just not only like a personality, but also like he is like still a high caliber running back.
Yeah, I know Dallas was hoping he would go to Dallas.
I thought I wanted him in Dallas, but I knew wherever he ended up, like it's a win for the team.
Yeah, and even if it's a year or 2 years, that's still probably the first number 1 running back since Mark Ingram was, I guess you could say, a number 1. And it's just been a mix ever since then. A slush fund of running backs almost.
It's also like kind of redundant because with Lamar being like a mobile quarterback, it's kind of silly having like a high caliber running back, but I'll take it. I'm here for it. I'm all about it.
Go ahead. Especially for the times he's torched us in playoff games and regular season games. I'm finally glad to have him to bash other people with.
Chase, I'm glad you're a Ravens fan. Being at Ship, I was surrounded by Eagles fans. You and Drew Barrett were my only guys. That's all. Those were my Ravens guys. And just I remember we were watching like in Lancaster, the Ravens, when they had that first Lamar year where it was really light. They played the Titans in the playoffs and lost pretty handily.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of Derrick Henry then, but I am now, so I'll turn coat.
Yeah. And especially, I mean, the Steelers series, going to be tough games. And I'm glad to have just a bulldozer of a running back that we can hand the ball off to and then let Lamar do his thing. I mean, they could both easily have 2 touchdowns each almost every single game, if you think about it. Just the way that they're set up and the possibilities are endless.
We have a good defense too, but what scares me about our current state of affairs with offense is that like it's so Lamar and offensive line heavy that when you start losing guys, which is like inevitable, like the Ravens historically lose a ton of guys real early, everything has to shift around, and it's kind of frustrating because you're teed up with all high hopes, and then I don't know, you're like your good left tackle gets hurt, and now you're kind of screwed when it comes to blocking.
Yeah. And it's happened far too frequently where there's been backups and Patrick McCary has to come in and play 700 snaps at 4 different positions. And he's all right, but he's only a Band-Aid. So this is definitely going to be a big problem for this year. Yeah, they had to replace 3 spots on the offensive line, one with most likely a rookie and a guy who was injured for the last year. So we'll see how this all is put together, but definitely have high expectations. I feel like for the Ravens, a Super Bowl or bust. You can't have anything less at this point, but still a lot of questions, a lot of key pieces left in the offseason. We lost some coaches, actually a shitload of coaches, if you want to categorize it that way. And, turning to people that don't have a whole lot of experience. So it's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out.
Did we keep our offensive coordinator? I don't even remember. I thought there was some fire about that. Oh, dang. I thought for sure he would go.
No, yeah. I guess he's probably one of the only people to stay. I was actually more defense where they just got wiped out with everyone just leaving. So it's definitely a bummer to see all those people go out, especially with the success the defense has had. So
it is weird flip-flopping. Like we used to be the defense team, and now we're like the offense team, and it's way more fun. I have way more fun watching the offense team. But I mean, you go from like the 2000s era, like when we won the Super Bowl when we were all in high school. Like Ray Lewis, Ed Reed, Terrell Suggs, Haloti Ngata, that gang. That was impressive.
Oh, man. Yeah, those were the heights. I mean, honestly, when we have a Steelers game and it was 10-3 at the end of the game, those were just defense highlights and nothing special about the offense. But Joe Flacco would have had an 85-yard bomb at some point in that game to put us up 7-0.
Look, Joe Flacco, I could have a whole separate podcast on Joe Flacco at this point in my life. Don't get me in this rabbit hole.
Where is he? Where is he at? Where is he at on your guys' ranks? Is he up there like favorite player all the time? I mean, he won you a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
When I was all right, so when I passed, like when I went through the bar exam and stuff, part of that's like a character and fitness evaluation, and they go through all your social media and stuff. So I went through all my old Facebook posts before that, just seeing like if there's anything I want to get rid of, anything embarrassing. And there was just a slew of posts from high school of me just slandering Joe Flacco. And I was like, I'll keep it. Maybe the guy reviewing me will agree with me. But it was just funny that like at the time I hated him because he just, and that's something people forget. Like our Super Bowl run, the Ray Rice up middle play, like that whole Super Bowl run was contingent on Joe Flacco throwing a check down pass on 4th and 26.
Yeah.
Like thank God it worked, but that was him.
And that playoff run, I think he went 27-0, touchdown to interception, passer rating. All stuff that Matt Ryan's never done in his career, so we get to hold that over Falcons fans and Matt Ryan forever.
He just finds a way to take shots at Matt Ryan. I love it.
Oh, yeah. I'm always going to pop off on a guy that blew a Super Bowl lead, was never a playoff MVP or Super Bowl MVP.
Had all the weapons. Is this a long-standing hatred, this Matt Ryan beef? Where did it come from?
I would say it's more just from the fact that when Matt Ryan and Joe Flacco were in the heyday of being elite and they were throwing down the word, it would just always go to Matt Ryan and never to Joe Flacco. And I never understood because I was like, you have to look at the facts. Joe Flacco has never had legit weapons like the way that Atlanta put it out there for Matt Ryan. He had Roddy White. He had Tony Gonzalez, I'm pretty sure, at the end of his career.
Julio Jones.
Julio Jones.
Yeah.
Yeah, Julio Jones. Yeah, let's take a look at the wide receivers the Ravens threw out on the field for Joe Flacco. Torrey Smith and Anquan Bolden, who was great. Don't get me wrong. I did a bunch of reports on Anquan, but they traded him after they won the Super Bowl, which was a terrible idea. And maybe an old-ass Mark Clayton. So those three guys compared to what I just listed for the Falcons, nowhere.
Steve Smith Sr. We had Steve Smith Sr.
And Steve Smith Sr. towards the end, but we never had a prime – fresh out of college, a day-old Julio Jones. If Joe Flacco would have had a Julio Jones, he might have actually been a regular season MVP. Plus, already we know he's a Super Bowl MVP. So I feel like that was never considered, and Matt Ryan never did anything other than just choking a Super Bowl to a quarterback that Joe Flacco would destroy pretty regularly in the playoffs when he was with the Ravens, to what I remember.
I have been a part of this Matt Ryan analysis for 4 minutes, and I'm in. I'm sold. This is now my viewpoint.
Yeah,
and also go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say Joe Flacco came back after everyone thought he was dead. He just rose from the ashes last year, took the Browns out of all people to the playoffs, and the Browns couldn't walk to the playoffs if they had two normal functioning legs.
I am honored that we got to see the Flaccaissance, the last ride of Joe Flacco.
Yeah, it was almost like a Phoenix moment. Like it was like you have to capture this moment and bottle it because you're never going to see it again.
I don't want to poke the bear, Chase, but how does Matt Ryan rank as far as your hatred compared to Blake Bortles?
Oh, I mean, if you thought the Matt Ryan hate was bad, Blake Bortles is nuclear.
Okay,
I mean,
I got it.
Where do we even? The fact that
I need to be filled in.
Okay, well,
I'll just never forget. I'm going over to your house in college, behind in Rocktown, and rooting for the Jaguars because they were playing the Patriots in the playoffs, just to find out how much you hated Blake Bortles and you were actually rooting for the Patriots. And I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, that was a tough day. That was really just it. I mean. But the Blake Bortles hate is the fact he's a trash quarterback, never was really actually good. They had an amazing defense. And Blake Bortles one time somehow made the playoffs against the Bills, and it might have been legitimately the worst 60 minutes that the NFL has ever televised. It was literally the worst game ever. I don't know what the score is if we could find it, but somehow, and this was all because Andy Dalton had to ruin the Ravens season that year because he had to complete a 4th and 17 pass or something for nothing. And then he gained a bunch of fans in Buffalo and then sent the playoffs into complete disarray. And we almost put Blake Bortles into a Super Bowl, which would have been even worse. If they thought that 60 minutes was trash, they would have just had to completely cancel the Super Bowl because there's no way he would have been able to go out there and actually play legitimately. 10-3. Look at this game.
There you go.
Look at this trash game that they put on a perfect. It was. I even remember the day. I drove to a house. I sat there. I watched. I ate snacks, and at the end, I was so hurt that I watched this. Nathan Peterman got in this. Look at this. This is horrible.
48 yards.
Chris Ivory's a good immaculate grid guy. Forgot about him.
Oh, for sure. But look at this. Look how 2 fumbles. He also one time threw a ball and it didn't go anywhere. It just fell out of his hand.
Oh my gosh. Well, I just wanted to ask Chase.
Yeah. And real quick before we go down too deep of a rabbit hole, real quick, Chase, I know you touched on it, but Matt and Chase, yes or no, is a Super Bowl win what's needed for a successful Ravens season?
Yes.
Well, I think everything would go right. Number one, Lamar play every single game. Otherwise, no shot.
But do you think they have to win? Do you think they have to win?
Super Bowl or bust?
Super Bowl or bust?
Oh, yeah. There's no doubt.
Okay.
Look, our entire lives, the Ravens have been a playoff caliber team. It's just kind of expected. We went to the playoffs a lot. I remember as a kid, like we would go to like the first or second round and we would lose. Yeah. We're spoiled. We're spoiled by
still waiting.
Hey, in a state where you only have 2 out of 4 major sports teams, I think it's only right that one of them is consistently good.
Most of the time, it's just one. The Orioles are only good recently. Most of the time, it was just one team.
Yeah, and that That might be a good segue. Did you guys have any last points on the Ravens before we move on to the O's? Because I feel like we have to touch on them too.
Favorite Raven of all time? Probably Tony Saragusa. The old Hard Knocks, or I guess when they first did it, like long ago, when the Ravens' first team. He's a goofball. He'll like go up to referees and be like, "These pants make me look fat." And like, he's just a goofball. He didn't take it too seriously. He's the football player I envisioned myself being if I was good at sports.
I like that answer. I would have never guessed Tony Siragusa, but definitely a Ravens
Yeah,
legend.
I would have never guessed it either,
sure.
man. I love it.
Yeah.
You pulled that out
I
of
love
nowhere.
that
That's a
pick.
pull. I love it.
Just if you watch the old Hard Knocks, you'll see it very quickly.
Yeah.
For sure. It's definitely gonna have to be on our radar now. But no, I love it. And obviously the Ravens are the top talk, I feel like, of Maryland and of Baltimore. But second to that would be the Baltimore Orioles, which, to your point, Matt, they usually suck. But Ben being the ultimate baseball guru, I feel like it's only best for him to run through the Orioles actually dominating not only just this year, but the past few seasons as well.
Yeah, so the Orioles, I mean, they kind of went into their window a little early last year. I don't think anyone expected them to have the year that it did, especially in the AL East being the tough division it is. You have, up and down the division caliber playoff teams. It feels like this year is kind of the beginning of what I call their kind of championship window. Baseball, you get like maybe a 3-year window, maybe. They did what they needed to do. They got Corbin Burns, and they got an ace for their staff. How are you feeling, Matt? I don't know. Do you think this season, so far they're kind of pacing with the Yankees right in second place, but they just have so much depth throughout the team in the minors. And then they got the ownership, which big change in ownership. Celebration should be definitely in store because now they might be able to actually pay their players as well, not trade everyone, kind of sustain this for a much longer period of time.
Yeah, and I mean, I consider myself an extremely jaded Baltimore Orioles fan. Just years of sadness have kind of like glazed you over to it. But now it's just exciting. It's fun to like today at work, we like put it on at lunch. Like we could watch the O's like at their like makeup game or whatever they did. It's just like it's a new energy. It feels good. The old owner was just kind of like aloof. He didn't do much. You probably have better like analysis of the stats and the players than I do. I just have the general like vibes of it, the culture of it.
Sure.
The old owner was like aloof. He was like a famous like asbestos attorney. The Angelos family, I'm not too bad mouthing them. They were respectable. But the only thing I really knew about him is that when you go down 83, like you're coming south, on your left side is a horse farm that was his. A lot of money into his horses, not a lot into the team. And so it felt good and like kind of new to have like good ownership. And there was a fun story, like the first day, like opening day, the owners like walked over to Pickles Pub, which is like right across from like one of the main entrances. And they bought everybody in the building a beer. I was like, this is good vibes. This starts a new era. Like they're entertaining. They the one owner went down. The Orioles have a section called the Bird Bath. Anytime there's like a good play or something cool, someone has a hose and they just spray everybody down. And the owner did it one time. He like got down there with like a goofy outfit and was like hosing people down when we had like a double play or something. So
Dang, that's
new
cool.
energy.
Yeah,
feels good.
Yeah, and the gripe before this year was kind of they have all these prospects. It's great, but at some point they're going to have to get rid of them because the owner's not going to, get the money and pay them. But now they might have a real shot. And you got Rutschman and Gunnar, who are basically you can kind of build around as cornerstones of the franchise. But then, I mean, they're just prospects keep coming up and keep performing. And like even Jordan Westbrook this year has been phenomenal for you guys. And you have Colby Mayo down the minors, he's gonna be a stud in my opinion too. And it's just a matter of time. So it's just constant coming up, through the minors and just constantly the top rotation. With Burns now, you got like Cole Irvin, who's been phenomenal. And I mean, the AL East is always going to be tough, but they've done a great job. And I think they've done a great job kind of shoring up bullpen too, because you had Felix Bautista kind of knowing he's out for most of the year.
I like that guy.
Yeah, came on the Yeah, came on the scene just like, lights out. And then this year you plug in Craig Kimbrell and it's like, oh shit. He's kind of struggled a little bit, but the team itself, they still have Cano. They could always put in there as a closer if they need to, and hopefully Batista's back at the end of the year. But I mean, I think even if they win this year, even they win the division or something and they don't win the championship, I think you're just starting their window. I mean, they have a lot of potential coming in, and they're only going to get better, especially those young guys.
My extremely poor analysis is the same to like, not just to take your thing and come back to like make it into my own, but the young guys we have, it feels good having like a bunch of like younger players that we're going to build on, not just like guys we trade for and get like a year out of. One of my favorite players too, Cedric. Yeah. They're like, they have good stories. Like Rutschman, like at the end of every game, he like hugs the pitcher. It's kind of, they're good guys. They're just like kind of pumped to be there. And Cedric Mullins too. He's pretty talented. I like him a lot. He, fun fact, went to Campbell University. My dad played baseball at Campbell, so it's funny I played lacrosse because he was good at baseball.
That's wild.
Yeah, Cedric Mullins, Matt, that's Lindsay's favorite player. Being as close
He's
we
been
are,
trash this year. Absolute garbage.
Okay,
he
but
hasn't
he's still
done hot this year.
Yeah, yet Ben.
Sitting 180.
It's May. I'm not stressed.
He is one of the players that has not been up to par. He still plays great defense, but his hitting is not. He's just striking out a lot, and he's just not. Yeah.
Matt, did you know that Ben almost caught a Cedric Mullins home run ball?
Oh dang!
How would he know that?
It's something we talk about. It's exciting.
Yeah. we were at an Orioles game last year, and it was me, Ryan, Lindsay, and Julia went to an Orioles game last year, and we just started walking around at the start of the game, just kind of walking around the field, and we happened to be in.
We get in late, so we go right into right field, like where there's a bunch of standing area, and literally we're like,
it's like a whole thing. Yeah, the place where the flags are.
Yeah.
Yes, we get in there just in time for the first pitch of the bottom of the first pitch. Cedric Mullins just cranks one, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is coming our way. So it's Ben, bare hand on his right hand, left hand has a giant gallon bag of goldfish. Just straight gets mobbed in the middle of all these people, and you just see the ball coming in like from the sky, and somehow Ben's hand is above everyone else's, straight off his palm, and then immediately gets bitched at by the guy behind him who had a glove that would have caught it.
I was there one time. Who's the guy that? Sorry, I'll let you finish your story. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say. Then you guys all told me I should have dropped the goldfish.
I say you should have caught it with the goldfish.
It was
in the bag.
It was a miss.
Who's the guy that travels around to different ballparks and like only catches foul balls? Because I was there one time and he was there and everybody booed him.
The ball guy. We talked about
the ball guy.
We talked about him on the podcast. Like, I don't.
What a douche.
You were there when he was there.
He caught one and he like held it up to cheer and like everybody booed him. And I was with Alex. And I was like, "Who is this guy?" And he's like, "Oh, that's the foul ball guy. Everyone hates him."
Yeah,
because he's also gotten some of like the milestone balls, like the like I forget, like even I don't know if it was like Pujols' 700th home, like some big money balls that he's just happened to get. I don't know. It's been he's no one likes. But yeah, we can wrap up the Orioles. I will say, out of everyone, personally, I'll bring it back to Colby Mayo. I think he could potentially be the Orioles' best player in the future. I think he's a guy who can literally hit 340 home runs for that team. It's just a matter of time. The dude is huge. He's like 6'5", 250, 260. So just be on the lookout for him. He's going to get called up probably in the next month or two.
I also want to say I'm a diehard Phillies fan. I will take Camden Yards 10 out of 10 days of the week over Citizens Bank Park. I love it there. The atmosphere is great. It seems like it's even better now with the new ownership. I love that the one area is called the Bird Bath. Everything about the park's just awesome. The vibes are great. And nothing against Philly, but I also feel safer there too.
Some Phillies.
You feel
fan,
safer
huh?
in Baltimore?
Okay. Maybe I took it too far.
No,
Actually,
it's once you're in the stadium or you're around the stadium with all the other fans, it's totally fine. It's Baltimore's just like you got to know where not to go. That's just the gist.
No.
And
And they gave
Camden
me this
Yards is
hat.
generally a safe spot. Oh, you
They
got the
gave me
bucket
this
hat.
money hat.
Yeah, they
money
do
bucket
giveaways.
hat.
They were you there? You know they do the crab shuffle. Do you guys have that at like Phillies games? Like some kind of game on the screen?
Oh yeah, they do
Yeah.
the buses.
Oh, okay. And then what about do you do the hot dog race? Do you do the hot dog race?
Not always. We used to do dollar dog night, where the fanatic would go out with a hot dog cannon and it was just dollar dogs. But
That's cool, actually.
yeah, we weren't good though, and we started throwing hot dogs around last year, so they took it away. So there's no more dollar dogs.
No,
Yeah.
the hot dog race at Camden Yards is on the screen. They put a little animatronic, like it's a ballpark. It's like the bases, and they have little cartoon hot dogs run around the bases, and everybody yells. It's a great time.
There's
Is
like
it the
there's
Nationals
a
that
bunch
has
of
the
different
real
ones.
Yeah.
The President's Race.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
Nationals do the
President's
President's Race.
And Atlanta
But-
does that freeze dude, the guy who like they
Oh,
let a
that's
fan-
cool though.
Yeah, I do like
Yeah.
that one. I hate the Braves, but I like that promotion.
Yeah.
Brian, I love your positive talk of Camden Yards. I love it there. We have fun there.
Yeah, for sure. We went to Preakness together. Now we're gonna have to get to an O's game together. And as long as they're not playing the Phillies, I'm in for rooting for the home team.
Yo, there is an O's Phillies game in June.
Oh, it's dangerous.
Yeah.
Dangerous. I'm gonna have to check it out.
Sounds good. But yeah, before we I know we're getting towards the end of our podcast, but I just want to give Matt the stage here and kind of do a little talk, something we've never talked about on the podcast before.
One of the most underrated professional sports, but also relevant in Baltimore is the Premier Lacrosse League. Did I say that right, Matt?
Yes. Look, I'm talking to you directly. I'm talking to your viewers directly. I know you. You know you. I know that you know you. Lacrosse, I get it. It's got a bad rep. It's kind of like the rich kids sport. It's got a weird rep. They've reinvented. It's new now. The old league was the MLL. That was the one you probably thought about and made fun of. That was the old major lacrosse league. I don't know, that might have been it. And it was the players got paid poorly. Nobody watched. The TV rights were terrible. It was just a bad vibes overall. So they formed the PLL, kind of like as an XFL. It was like a union league almost. Like the players wanted to reinvent it. So then the PLL, the Premier Lacrosse League, is what's going now. And they bought out the MLL. So it's kind of like it's all looped back.
The PLL, right?
Wait, what is it? The PLL?
The PLL, the Premier Lacrosse League, which is very confusing because it gets confused with the Premier League or Pretty Little Liars. But both of those are good options to watch. And anyway, so it's originally they knew lacrosse isn't popular. I get that. In the dog days of summer, when all you have is baseball, which is actually kind of fun to watch with the pitch clock now, I'll give it that. But all you have is baseball and like the Olympics. That's an outlier. But in the June, July days of summer, there's not good sports. Lacrosse is basically land hockey. Very similar rules if you've never watched. And originally they knew it wasn't very popular, so they started with like a touring model. There were 6 teams, and they just kind of traveled around. Like they had like a bunch of games in Philly, they had a bunch of games in Boston. Like they would just play games against each other in different cities. And now they've kind of like decided to settle down. And that's what I like about them. They're good with engagement and like marketing. They knew it wasn't big, so they're just bringing it to different areas to kind of introduce it. And now they've kind of like settled down, and they've announced that each team has a city, but they're still doing the touring model. So like the Water Dogs, that's Philadelphia. The other weird part that's kind of frustrating is they used weird names. They didn't want any repeat names with other leagues. So that's very identifiable. So like the New York is the Atlas, which is like, that's not in any other league. Philly is the Water Dogs. That's kind of like a Barstool collab. And then Maryland is the Whip Snakes. I don't really know what a whip snake is, but it's cool. So I'm in on it. And when, originally when there were no cities, you just kind of had to pick a team that looked cool, maybe had a cool jersey. So like Evan gravitated toward the Archers, who are now the Utah Archers. So good luck seeing a game when they settle down. I like the Atlas, but they're New York. I don't know how I feel about that now. So it's just kind of like originally, like if you picked a team, you got to like the city now. But now they've kind of like gotten to a groove, more like a professional sport. And I think in next year they're just they're going to drop the touring model in the next couple of years and get back to like a real professional sport. So it's entertaining. Give it a try. Watch a couple. It's on ESPN Plus sometimes. Sometimes it's on ESPN2. It's fun.
How many teams are there right now?
So it started with 6, then they added the Water Dogs as an expansion. And then when they bought the MLL had a bunch of teams, and it was kind of like a tradition. So they brought the Boston Cannons back. Like the Cannons was like a little like tribute team to like the old league. And so now there's 8 teams total.
Nice.
Okay. That's all. Are there plans to expand it more, like in the field? Like
they talk about it and they talk about expanding it, but like I think they can kind of read the room that like 8 right now is like the perfect amount, not too much, not too little. If they expanded more, they'd probably have like the other like main. Sorry, I burped there. The other main center point is that like they wanted like the players to get paid fairly, and they wanted like reasonable schedules. So they didn't want to overbook and have too many teams, because like the MLL paid them like $20 every other week, whereas like the PLL is like you can make a viable career out of it because it's only in the summer, so you could do coaching jobs after that or like do merch stuff. You could kind of have the best of both.
Cool.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
So lacrosse, it seems like the Premier Lacrosse League is growing, yes, but also lacrosse across the country. Yeah, say that 5 times quick. I feel like, would you say is growing, like the sport itself is growing still?
Yeah, I would say since I was a kid, like since I played, I didn't play in college. I was supposed to. I didn't want to. I was sick of it because I had a series of bad coaches. That's what I tell myself, at least. It makes myself feel better. It's definitely growing. It's like I see it more popping up in like the South and like kind of in the West. And it feels good because it's like a good hybrid. It's like it has like contact. Like it's the same contact as hockey. You can hit guys, you can like check with the stick. It's the same like physical contact sport, but not as much as football. So it's kind of like a good middle ground between like letting your kid play soccer or letting your kid play football, you know?
Yeah.
Do you know, Matt? If you don't, that's fine. Is there considered like a GOAT in lacrosse, or like a one of the best players ever? Like, is there someone who's considered that?
A lot of guys will say Gary Gate. He's like the OG good guy, or like trying to think. At least in my time, like in my young age, the guy was Kyle Harrison. He was like a big deal when we were kids. And that's the other part. Like lacrosse has always had a problem with like it just being like a notoriously white kid sport. And Kyle Harrison was like one of the first like black kids to play the sport, and he was really good in college. And then he went into the MLL, and he kind of like changed the face of the game, which was great. Like it's finally expanding more, which is like exactly what you want. And Kyle Harrison was a legend. He was like, when we were kids, that's who we thought was the coolest. And then the other was Paul Rabel, who's like the guy who founded the PLL. Like he originally played in it too, which was a little silly. But those are like the top 3. Like that's how I kind of view it, is like the guy who like everyone views as like the Johnny Unitas type, like the old school best player. And then like the 2 new school guys.
The LeBron of lacrosse.
Yeah.
That's cool. I mean, so for this upcoming season, like, is there anything specific we should watch for? Any team that's going to like stomp anyone? Any player that we should keep on our radar? Any bets? Any future bets? Anything to watch for this upcoming season?
All right, I'm gonna give you a tip right now. And then I think it's Labor Day is the championship. On Labor Day, you're gonna come to me and you're gonna say, Matt, thank you for the money that you earned me. The Boston Cannons. So they did in the winter, they do like a little championship series. They take the best 4 teams from the regular season and they play indoor lacrosse, which is a whole different story. I won't get into it. But the team that won the championship series in the indoor game was the Boston Cannons. So they're coming off hot, like a good like championship. They have good like communication right now. They got a good like crew. And then the real kicker is that one of the best players, like the future, like people will look back on this guy decades later and say he's like, you know, the LeBron of this era. Lyle Thompson. He is an indigenous player. Lacrosse was an indigenous sport. I want that on paper. I want that written down. The Native Americans came up with the sport. Lyle Thompson is an indigenous guy. He is really good at lacrosse. He took some time off of the PLL for a little bit, but he's allegedly coming back this year. And if his team is the Cannons. So if he comes back to a team that's already hot off, a no-brainer, futures bet, money line bets. It's where it is at.
Oh, okay.
Plus 500 for them in the championship. Looking at the odds right now.
Plus 500. That's tasty, Matt. That's tasty.
I would do it and you're going to send me some of those winnings when you don't do that. Are they the top or is it somebody else up there? Water Dogs are good too.
There's 2 teams at plus 480. The Archers and the Water Dogs at plus 480, and then the Cannons are plus 500. So you're right there.
The Water Dogs are good. There's a lot to be said for all of them, but I'm on the Cannons most for a guy I went to high school with plays on the Cannons too, so it's kind of cool watching that. It's kind of
nice.
A little bit.
Oh, so you know players in the league then?
Yeah, a lot of Alex used to be one of the like staff managers for University of Maryland lacrosse, so he knows a couple of the guys personally. And then we played like with as kids with a couple of the guys. It's kind of cool. It gives you like a check of like, like you can say, hey, I played against that guy and he would destroy me back then and he's destroying people now. So it's good feeling.
That's
cool.
crazy.
That's awesome. We'll have to keep an eye on it. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah.
Chase.
No, I was about to say, until you just clarified how they play the indoor thing, the entire time I thought this was an indoor only league. Just because in Philly, we grew up with the Wings and like they're pretty like they had a name, they were pretty established, I would say, for the Philadelphia area, but they played indoors, so
different league.
Yeah. So that's why I was wondering. I was like, when you said about the Water Dogs, I was like, oh, I wonder why they didn't pick the Wings to take that name.
No,
just because it's established.
It's always been a concurrent league, the NLL. I think that's the National Lacrosse League. It's further complicated in the matter.
Yeah.
They're like it's called box lacrosse.
Oh shit. Yeah.
That's still around.
Has that been? Yeah, it's actually really popular. Okay. They get probably as good of a crowd, if not more, than the PLL. The NLL is like box lacrosse, which is like a little bit modified to be indoors. It's almost like I call it like lacrosse ball. Yeah. Like outdoor lacrosse, you have to have I call it lacrosse ball because an outdoor lacrosse, you have to have like a certain amount of guys stay back on the past the midfield line. So when the ball transitions, you have guys who are staying on one end of the field doing nothing, like the defense and the attackman for the other side. But then in box lacrosse, anybody can go anywhere except the goalie. So it's like basketball lacrosse. Like everybody runs to one side, everybody runs to the other.
Dang, that's intense. Yeah,
that's cool.
No, it's interesting.
I love it.
Yeah.
I like how they do they take the top 4 teams for like a little mini winter tournament type thing because we know it's been coming up. The WNBA does an in-season tournament, obviously, but we like how like the Baseball World Classic is almost like a tournament before the season. It's kind of cool. Lacrosse does that too. It kind of probably hypes everyone up, like, oh yeah, let's ramp up for the season here, get some time in for the winter time for anyone to come watch too, and I think they're doing a great job. I think they're doing it right by having everyone travel around. Still weird to me that they picked a team that be in Utah when majority of teams are in the East. But hey,
apparently there's a market. Apparently it works. There's only like 2 teams west or maybe 3 west of the Mississippi. Like it's high concentration like Northeast because that's where lacrosse is kind of like rooted right now.
No, it makes sense, but I like too that you said it's expanding because for me it was like tennis or golf in high school. It was it was like your preppy kids. You had to have money to play the sport, and it's not necessarily an expensive sport, but it was kind of what the stereotype was. So it's cool that the PLL is doing things to expand that, and also cool that they're potentially having an Indigenous legend coming back. I'm for sure going to be watching the Boston Cannons. They might be my team, Matt, even though they're from Boston.
Ooh. I know it hurts a little bit. It feels weird, but I like the Cannons. I like all the players on it, so it just kind of is tough. I watch the league as a whole. It's one of those things where I'll watch like any of the games and kind of feel good about it.
I like it. Where does the Premier Lacrosse League rank on like your sports to watch? Like, is it easily top 5, top 3? Like, if you had to pick something to watch?
No, I think NFL is still number 1. It usually is, and then probably PLL is number 2. I don't really watch like a ton. Like I'll go to a baseball game. I don't watch the NBA at all, and I'm glad that I was not on for that segment because I just never. Baltimore didn't have an NBA team, so I just never got into it. We don't have a hockey team. Never got into hockey. It was so it's one of the ones that I watch. I try to go out of my way to watch.
That's cool.
I like it. Yeah.
I really appreciate you giving us a full segment on that. That's what After Further Review is all about. The weird stuff. We got to talk horse racing and lacrosse. Right. I mean. I feel like it's like the definition of the Baltimore episode because they don't have, like you said, they don't have a basketball and a hockey team. You have to branch out, find creative ways to still watch sports, root for sports, go to sporting events. And I think Maryland does a great job with bringing that in other ways.
Yeah.
Great analysis. And that's what I'm glad I could contribute, because I know not a lot of people know lacrosse. And, like you said, like I love that lacrosse is expanding past the image of like just being the rich kid's sport. Like it's a fun game. I had a lot of fun playing. Everybody should play it. So I like that the PLL's put an emphasis on like this game is not just for like the typical crowd you think it is.
Yeah. I like that. And they play outside all the time, right? It's a
summer league. So it
Okay.
runs this weekend, Memorial Day weekend. That's this weekend through Labor Day. So it's like just a summer league.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of where the Philadelphia team plays now, because there's so many places like around here that they can do that.
I don't know. Evan and I went to the championship, which was at the Philadelphia United, the soccer team.
Oh, the Union, yeah, in Chester. Yeah.
That was it was at their stadium, by like the one by the river, which was
Yeah.
filled out, like it was packed.
Yeah.
But I don't think they definitely can't do like an NFL venue. It looks kind of sad. I think they purposely pick smaller venues so it looks packed.
Right. Yeah, that's on. It must be the Union Stadium, because it probably makes sense. I think it holds like 19,000 at most, but definitely could put the people at the bottom and make it seem like it's more filled out than usual. But yeah, that's awesome. Plus, I like Philly's name, but I feel like it has to be the Water Dogs. I feel like that's why they went
The
that
Water
way.
Dogs.
Yeah, I
The
feel like that
Water
was I feel like that was the whole point of them picking that, was so people would just say the Water Dogs.
The Water Dogs. I love it.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome. No, this was awesome. Now I'm pumped that you killed it. I'm pumped that Barack Obama killed the March Madness bracket.
Yeah.
Dude, that was my ending line. Like, thank you guys. Thank you, Barack Obama, for your March Madness picks.
No, but I mean, I feel like it was cool too. We live so close to Baltimore and to Maryland. Like, it's cool going down there and checking different things out. And it's cool to know that there's other things just to watch besides just the O's this summer, especially with the lacrosse league. But because this is your first time on the show, is there anything else you want to say to the world right now before we wrap up the Baltimore episode?
Look, I didn't give it much thought, but I have one final concluding thought. If Joe Flacco goes for one more season, which I don't know where he'll end up. I don't know what's going to happen, but just know I'll be rooting for him wherever he may end up playing football. Wherever he is throwing the football 80 yards and probably getting intercepted, I will be watching and I will be betting. My final thought is Joe Flacco, as always.
Yeah. Always pouring one out for Joe Flacco's career.
Yeah. Well, Matt, we appreciate you coming on. It was a great time. As always, we had a blast talking lacrosse, and we'll get you out on some of your music to send you off.
Ben, Ryan, Chase, Matt Catroco, guest number 3 on After Further Review. Matt, I hope this isn't the last time we talk. Maybe we get you on the summer sometime to break down how the lacrosse season is going, because I'm excited for it now.
I'm in. Count me in. I'm there.
All right, boys.
Let's do it.
Peace out. Great show. Thanks all for joining today, and we'll see you next time. After Further Review, episode 66. We out.
See ya.
Love you guys.